Hi everyone. So today's learning objectives are: first, we're going to explain what is meant by GDP. Secondly, we're going to analyse the different stages of this thing called the business cycle. And lastly, we're going to make connections between the business cycle and what's currently happening in the UK. Now, our keyword is GDP. This stands for Gross Domestic Product, and it tells us how many goods and services a country is producing. Now, if a country is producing a lot of goods and services, we say that country has a high GDP. On the other hand, if a country is producing a lower amount of goods and services, we say it has a low GDP. So think about it. Is having a high GDP good for a country? Well, the answer is yes, because if a country is producing lots of goods and services, this means that more people have jobs. Now, if more people have jobs, they've got more money to spend. And because of this, we say that people have a higher standard of living. So overall, having a high GDP is good for a country. So in this picture, you can see the business cycle. Now, this is what this taster session is all about. So on the horizontal axis, we've got time, and on the vertical axis, we've got GDP. Now, you all know what GDP is. It means gross domestic product, and it's the value of all the goods and services that a country produces. Now, in the middle of the business cycle, we've got the 4 stages. We've got the slump stage, the recovery stage, the boom stage, and the recession stage. Now, the next few slides will go through these stages in a bit more detail. So let's start with the boom stage of the business cycle. Now, during the boom stage, GDP is high. The country is producing lots of goods and services, there are jobs, and people have money to spend. Overall, people are very happy and the country is doing really well economically. Now, on the flip side, let's look at the slump stage. Now, during the slump stage, GDP is very low. The country is not producing much, there aren't many jobs, and people don't have a lot of money to spend. Now, this isn't a good situation, and no country wants its GDP to be really low, and no country wants to be in the slump stage of the business cycle. So now we're going to talk about the next 2 stages, which are in between the boom stage, which is really good, and the slump stage, which is not so good. So first, let's talk about the recession stage. Now, this is when GDP starts to fall. So we're heading towards a slump, but we're not at a slump yet. This stage is called the recession stage. Now, an example of the recession stage would be during the COVID-19 lockdown, when GDP did actually start to fall. Now, on the other side, we've got the growth stage of the business cycle. Now, this is when things start to improve and GDP starts to rise again. And an example of this could be after the COVID-19 lockdown, where things start to open up, when businesses start to produce more and offer more goods and services. So this is an example of GDP starting to rise, and you'd find this at the growth stage. So now it's your turn to test what you've learnt. Can you match the following 4 events to the correct stage of the business cycle? Let's take a look at the 4 events. Okay, so A, home pizza delivery becomes more popular. Now, which stage of the business cycle do you think A relates to? B, thousands of new homes are being built in towns and cities across the UK. C, there is more unemployment. More people are without jobs. And then we have D, the number of homeless people is at an all-time high. Now, which stage do you reckon that one links to? So take a moment, think about it, write down your answers if you need to, and only move on or play the next slide once you've attempted this. So here are 4 questions to check your understanding of the topic. Have a go, give all of them a try, and if you need help then watch the video again. So pause the video here and try out the questions.